Right. Good evening, everyone. And I think we can start now. It is on time, and there may be some other people as well logging in. Or can we just give them a minute then? Still numbers going up. Right. So let's kickstart the webinar. Thank you for joining us. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third webinar of the Nautical Institute Singapore branch. The first two on supporting seafarer well-being ashore and at sea, and successful crew changes under COVID-19 restrictions were rather well received based on positive feedback from you all. In case you all missed out on any of these and would like to revisit the discussions, the recordings are available on the Nautical Institute Singapore's LinkedIn page. I once again would like to remind all our viewers that unfortunately, due to the extraordinary COVID-19 situation we have been faced with throughout our most famous 2020, our Singapore branch annual seminar, which was to be held at the Singapore Convention Center in May, has been postponed to next year and is now scheduled to take place sometime around the third quarter next year. We trust we have all your understanding on this and look forward to your enthusiastic participation as usual to make it a success. I would now like to pass the microphone virtually to our branch president, Captain Yves Vanderborn, to share with us briefly on the branch activities and introduce our expert panel for today. Over to you, Yves.
Thanks, Harry. And good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, or from wherever you are dialing in. Very much welcome to our webinar. And I wanted to give a few thoughts a little bit on the activities. And for those of you who are not really familiar with what the Nautical Institute actually is, we are a global independent body for maritime professionals by seafarers, by maritime professionals. So we are promoting the standard of the maritime profession, both afloat and ashore. The Nautical Institute has NGO status at the IMO, which means that we can directly voice our opinions, our thoughts to the IMO at the highest level, which is really quite important that we are able to do so on behalf of the seafarers. Being part of the Nautical Institute has quite a lot of advantages for you who are not yet a member. The NI was founded in the UK in 1990 and currently has over 17,000 members worldwide. As a member, you are entitled to put your designation, be it as a member or an associate fellow, or once you become a fellow, you can put that up on your credentials, on your name cards. You have one free videotel training session, actually, which I think already pays back for your annual subscription. And you have a very good and monthly magazine, the Seaways magazine, with a lot of very interesting information in it. You have the Navigator magazine. You have, of course, a variety of groups that you can be part of to have a discussion on anything maritime related, technical, professional related. Being a member is not expensive at all. It can start for as low as about £140 a year to become a member. And you are a member worldwide. So it's not that you choose to sign up, for example, only for the Singapore branch. You are automatically a member worldwide. The Singapore branch itself was founded in late 2015. We had our first meeting in 2016 and currently are at about 200 members. So we have grown quite nicely here in Singapore, but I really would want to encourage you to spread the word, sign up yourself if you are not yet a member, and join us so we can grow the group. We are organizing annual seminars, conferences, what Harry was saying. Unfortunately, this year we are not able to do so, and we will be doing one next year. We have regular gatherings, we have these webinars that we are organizing, and we have something quite exciting that we are working on for probably later this year or early next year. I don't want to talk too long, and I do want to introduce the really great panel that we are having with us this afternoon. I will leave it with Harry to introduce the topic a bit more later, but let me talk a little bit on the panel that we have. First of all, Captain Harry Hirst. Harry, if you want to wave. Harry is a consultant, and there he is, Master Mariner at Ince. I think most people will be aware of who Harry is. He went to sea after leaving school in 1975. He became a qualified Master Mariner in 1988. He finished both his nautical studies and his law and qualified as a solicitor in England in 1992. He has basically spent his whole legal career specializing in Admiralty law and will be, I think I can say, Harry, one of the world's foremost Admiralty lawyers. Harry moved to Asia in 1992, so he has been in this region for a very long time, advising ship owners and as well very much the clubs, the insurers, on maritime casualties. Harry specializes in all aspects of the Admiralty law, including collisions, salvage, total loss, wreck removals, pollutions, fires, basically anything that can happen on board of a ship. And he has been involved in several of the most serious maritime incidents in Asia. So Harry, thank you so much for joining us. We then also have Captain Chatur on the line. Captain Chatur is Deputy Director at the Singapore Maritime Academy. He also started his sea career in 1987, became a Master Mariner in 1999. He joined the Singapore Maritime Academy in 2000 and was elected member of the Singapore Polytechnic Board of Studies from 2012 onwards. He has played a key role in developing several of the diploma and post-diploma courses that are currently being offered by the Polytechnic and by the MPA. He also obtained his maritime law from the University of Southampton in England in 2007 and is involved with quite a variety. Chatur, I have problems going through all of these that you put up there. He's involved in quite a lot. He's sitting on a maritime panel for the Singapore Mediation Center since 2013. He is involved with the Small Claims Tribunal in the state courts and with the Siraya courts in Singapore on a pro bono basis. So in addition to his jobs at the Singapore Maritime Academy, he does quite a lot of other things as well, and we're really happy that he is with us this afternoon. I then would like to introduce Jillian Carson-Jackson. And Jillian is really honored to have Jillian with us, as she is the current president of the Nautical Institute globally. But Jillian started her career as an officer cadet in the Canadian Coast Guard. She sailed on a variety of vessels with the Coast Guard there, and then moved ashore to work on the VTS, both as an operator of the VTS and as an instructor for the VTS. She she instructed people for more than 10 years at the Canadian Coast Guard before moving to France, where she became a manager, she became the technical coordination manager for EALA. She then moved on to Australia in 2006 and took on the role of a manager of the vessel traffic and pilotage services for AMSA, where she worked until 2016 and where she was focusing on maritime education and training, as well as digitalization of the maritime environment. So I feel this goes really right up the alley of what we are going to discuss today, Jillian. Jillian represents the Nautical Institute at the EALA as well as the chair of the EALA VTS committee. She previously was the secretary and the chair of the Nautical Institute South East Australian branch, but earlier this year she was elected as our global president. So Jillian, thank you so much for joining us. Last but not least, and actually I should skip you, Harry. I need to introduce our moderator for this afternoon, Captain Harry Subramaniam. I think everybody knows him. He's our regional head of business relations at the Shipowners BNI. Harry has quite a long sailing career, sailed as master on a wide variety of vessels. He joined the Shipowners Club in 2009, where he was overseeing the development and the growth of the loss prevention department till quite recently. In addition to running the club's global survey program, he also provided a lot of maritime technical expertise to industry stakeholders, did training sessions, etc. He recently moved on to have a bigger role and abandoned us on the loss prevention side to become the regional head of business relations for the club. I'm also happy to say that he sits on the Nautical Institute Singapore's committee as our vice president. And I've taken enough time, Harry. Thank you so much. And over to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Yves. And yes, indeed, an excellent panel who have oodles of experience and are highly qualified and experienced in their own fields. It's a pleasure to have them. Not sure they needed an introduction because I think all of us over here know who they are. Before we proceed any further, a few house rules for today's session, and we request your kind understanding and cooperation for the same. If you all have a question, we request you to use the Q&A chat function, not the normal chat function that's just for hello and good evening and good night, but please use the Q&A chat function and type out your question. You all can vote on the questions already raised in case it is similar to the ones that you all already have in mind. We shall raise it to our panel once appropriate, if it's appropriate. Please don't take it personally in case your question is not discussed, and PM me what all you'll think of me. But we are faced with a time constraint. For many, it's a fag end of the working day. For some, it's already night. In fact, it's quite late in the day for Jillian as well. So thank you, Jillian, and her colleagues from down under. Secondly, the questions will be taken up by us at a Q&A session right at the end, after all the panelists have presented their views. It may be a case where some panels may answer some questions later. Should there be any unaddressed issues during the webinar, please feel free to write to us at singapore.branch@notince.org. It is in a little bit of writing on the top right of my screen, but you all know us. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, swiftly moving to our topic of discussion today. This is the first in a series of 3 webinars planned this month. It is envisaged that the discussions today will set the scene for our next webinar. Sorry, I just put Harry on mute just to let you know. Sorry. This is the first in a series of 3 and will set scene for our next webinar dealing with adequacy of container securing systems. This will take place on the 14th of October at 1600 hours. And the third webinar of this series is on cyber security, scheduled for 28th October. The time is yet to be confirmed. Hold your horses, folks. The invites aren't out yet, and watch the space. Please follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram so that you aren't left behind in our wake. Okay, e-navigation covers a broad spectrum of digital navigational equipment, right from positioning fixing systems, electronic charts, EGDIS, weather monitoring systems, and of late even enhanced decision support systems. The response to the E-Nav revolution has seemed to evoke diverse reactions, with many agreeing that this boils down to some sort of a generation gap issue. Yes, we have that in shipping as well. Whether there is any truth or not in this perception, all boils down to the mindset and aptitude of the individual navigator, and most importantly, the individual's readiness to accept change and flow with the changing ecosystem. Indeed, you could be a rebellious crusader. However, in that case, the message from the industry has been loud and clear: shape up or ship out. I would like to reiterate my sincere request to all the audience: use your discretion while posing questions to our panelists, that they are in line with the topic of discussion. If you're unhappy because of crew changes due to COVID, that time has passed. It was our previous webinar. Indeed, you all would find this refreshing that we are addressing other aspects of shipping rather than just keeping on flogging on COVID and crew changes. If the questions are not relevant or considered inappropriate, they would not be presented to our panelists. Thank you for your understanding. Then coming back to kickstart our proceedings, I would like to call upon Harry Hirst as our first speaker. Harry, without any stereotyping, I hope you wouldn't mind me saying that you are a master mariner who has weathered many a storm before the advent of e-navigation. You have first-handedly witnessed the transition from what I would tongue-in-cheek say the stone age of shipping to the beginning of the space age of marine navigation, as well as have been involved in many investigations. I think Eve has given us a good dossier on you. To set the ball rolling for your presentation, we have a few questions before you start so that the audience know where we are coming from. What are your views on traditional navigational techniques versus E-Nav techniques? How is that, in spite of advancement in navigational technology, we still happen to see high-profile maritime incidents which are attributed to failure in navigation? What, in your opinion and experience, is the ideal line of balance between the two systems, manual versus automated, as clearly one cannot do without the other? Is there a case of complacency and over-reliance on technology by the navigator? Is it a matter of concern that since the navigators are brought up by using these E-Nav systems, they are less experienced with traditional terrestrial and celestial position fixing systems and techniques? I know a lot of questions before you start, but over to you, Harry. I'm just going to share my screen for your presentation. Can you see the presentation? Sorry, Harry, can you just unmute yourself, please? Yeah, Harry, I'm just going to share the screen now.
Okay.
Do let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yes, thanks, Harry. Perhaps before I just start on the presentation, just to quickly address those 4 questions you put. Personally, I prefer not to think of traditional navigational techniques and e-navigational techniques as separate and distinct, but rather as different tools in the mariner's navigational toolbox. Now, that toolbox has a limited capacity, and over time, new E-Nav techniques will and have replaced and will continue to replace some of the older traditional navigational tools which the mariner no longer needs. The key really is timing, knowing when it's safe to throw out the old navigational techniques, the traditional techniques, and being able to rely entirely on the new e-navigational technology. The last 30 years have seen incredible advances in the development of electronic navigational aids in e-technology. With these advances, however, has come a decrease in reliance upon the old traditional navigational techniques as some of them get thrown out of the toolbox. Today, for example, the GPS has largely replaced astronavigation and indeed most other forms of position fixing. The ARPA has replaced radar plotting, and very few vessels today still carry radar plotting sheets or have radars fitted with reflector plotting screens. And the ECDIS is in the process now of replacing paper charts. Yet, despite all these technological advances, vessels are still running aground and collisions are still occurring. Now, why is this? One reason, I believe, is because mariners today are not making optimum use of this new technology. I'd like to look briefly at the purpose of this new E-Nav technology, what it does, and more importantly, what it does not do, how mariners are failing to make optimum use of it, and what needs to be done to ensure that mariners do make optimum use of it. So let's start by looking at the purpose. In my view, and in very general terms, E-Nav technology today serves 5 main purposes. It provides the officer of the watch with a continuous up-to-the-minute display of his or her own vessel's course and speed. It provides the officer of the watch with a continuous up-to-the-minute display of his or her vessel's position relative to the surrounding land and other geographical dangers. It assists the officer of the watch with the early detection and identification of other vessels in the immediate vicinity. It assists the officer of the watch with the early determination of the positions, courses, and speeds of these other vessels. and it assists the officer of the watch with the early determination of risk of collision with these other vessels. So what does it not do? What's the function of E-Nav technology? What it does, it improves the ability of the officer of the watch to make a quicker and fuller appraisal of the vessel's situation vis-à-vis her proximity to geographical dangers, and to make a quicker and fuller appraisal of the vessel's situation vis-à-vis the risk of collision with other vessels in the vicinity. Trial manoeuvre facilities allow the officer of the watch to better predict beforehand the changes which a particular manoeuvre will have on the vessel's situation. What E-Nav does not do is it does not tell the officer of the watch when there are errors with its output. It does not tell the officer of the watch when he or she is not using it properly or at all, and it does not tell the officer of the watch when and what action he or she should be taking to avoid danger, to avoid running aground or to avoid having a collision. Until vessels are fully autonomous, the officer of the watch will still be responsible for using, checking and monitoring the output of these electronic nav aids, and for deciding when and what actions to take to avoid danger. I want to have a brief look now at an example of each of these things which E-Nav technology does not do. How the failure by the officer of the watch to make optimum use of E-Nav technology resulted in a marine casualty. This first example we're going to look at is where the output from the electronic nav aid, in this case from the GPS, was faulty. The officer of the watch, the chief officer, was using the GPS. Sorry, can you go back there, Harry? Thank you. The officer of the watch, the chief officer, was using the GPS to fix his position as he passed through the Singapore Strait. The black line shows the vessel's intended track along the eastbound traffic lane. The red line shows the vessel's actual track. The chief officer was warned on 3 separate occasions by the Singapore VTIS that he was navigating outside of the traffic lane. On each occasion, he checked his position, but again, using only the GPS. And convinced he was inside the lane, he ended up running the vessel aground on the Helen Mar Reef. Now, why was the GPS output in this case in error? Well, some weeks before, whilst the vessel was at anchor off Aden, the second officer had decided to adjust the datum on the GPS so that he did not have to keep applying corrections to the readout when plotting positions on the chart. He did not tell anyone he had done so, with the result that the GPS was still on the datum for Aden and not on WGS 84 when the vessel was transiting through the Singapore Strait. The error in the GPS positions was small, only a couple of cables, but in the Singapore Strait, as this case illustrated, it can be the difference between being afloat and being aground. Next, I'd like to have a look at an example where there's been a complete failure to use the available electronic aids at all. In this example, one vessel, her track shown in red, failed to detect the presence of the other ship until seconds before the collision. This, despite being fitted with ARPA and AIS, and despite it being a clear night with good visibility. The other ship, her track in blue, was aware of the risk of collision, but having determined it was a crossing situation, she stood on and failed to take any avoiding action, and there was a collision. Finally, I'd like to take a look at where there's been a failure to take proper avoiding action and some misuse of the available electronic nav aids. In this example, Ship A was carefully monitoring the approach of Ship B on her ARPA radar and knew that Ship B was shaping up to cross ahead at a distance of about 4 cables. The weather was fog with zero visibility, but the collision warning alarm on the ARPA was still set at half a mile, 5 cables. Using the trial manoeuvre facility, the officer of the watch decided he would alter course 10 degrees to starboard at C-5 to ensure a 5 cable passing distance. Unfortunately, Ship B also altered her course to starboard this time, and the 2 vessels collided. So how can we ensure that mariners do make better and proper use of E-Nav technology? The starting point is to identify the correct goal. That goal, in my view, is still the same today as it has always been and will always be while ships are manned. That is, it's to ensure that mariners acquire and apply the necessary skills to practice good seamanship. How do we ensure this? Well, we ensure it, I believe, with better training. Better training in the basic navigational skills so as to avoid an over-reliance on electronic navigational aids and a failure to continually monitor and cross-check them. Better training on how to properly use electronic nav aids and to know when they and how they work and their limitations. And finally, better training on the coal regs and what the rules require in terms of timing and the type of proper action, avoiding action to avoid collision. So on that point, I'd like to hand back to you, Harry, and a good point to bring in Captain Chatur.
Well, thank you, Harry. Of course, with all the experience at your disposal, I think it was wonderful, extremely thought-provoking, and you've raised quite a few pertinent points. I'm sure there will be many questions as always, and so we shall save the best for the last in our QA sessions. I would now like to invite on our screen our next panelist, Captain Chatur. Captain Chatur, can I ask you to come? Yeah, there you are. All right. You have had many, many years of experience under your belt in the field of maritime training, and it's really great to have you on the show. Okay. We have quite a few queries with regard to your expertise on the topic to get you warmed up. So clearly, one of the most important element in any maritime venture, and as Harry has also raised, is the seafarer. And the clause paramount for their optimum performance is effective training. So a few questions, if I may. What are the modern day training regimes and tools available for our navigating officers? How are we evolving and staying ahead of the game with our training techniques? Are we inculcating lessons learned from high profile navigational accidents and imbibing these lessons into our new generation seafarers via training? And how do you find the new generation navigators coping with E-Nav systems, and your thoughts on regarding them acquiring hands-on practical experience in the rudimentaries of ship handling? I'll just share my screen now to get your presentation. Just bear with me. I'm not all that tech savvy, but I'm getting there.
Okay, thank you, Captain Harry, for the introduction.
Can you see your presentation now on the screen?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Thank you. Just let me know when to switch to the next slide and I'll be happy.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. And I would like to thank you, Nautical Institute, for inviting me to serve in this panel. Okay, from the presentation which Captain Harry had done earlier, so it's true that now the ships are actually equipped with the latest technology. So if the crew or the seafarers is not able to operate the equipment effectively, so disaster will happen. So that's why it's important for us actually to train the seafarers well, to prepare them for future to operate next generation ship. Okay, just give you a short intro about SMA first before I start my presentation. SMA has been training seafarers for over 60 years, 63 years exactly. So we have been training officers from all levels, from fresh cadets all the way to chief engineer and ship master. So over these years, technology have come in a big way. So it changed the way actually we work, it changed the way we live, and it changed the way we teach. So later I'm going to share with you what are the training facilities that we have in SMA that currently we are doing to train our seafarers. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, normally we impart our knowledge to the students using classroom and lecture theatre. For imparting skills, that means we want them to have competency in seamanship and also in various safety training and survival training. We have these waterfront facilities at Panellist, as you can see from the picture. So in this area, we want the student to get dirty, they mean their hands dirty, so we actually conduct a survival training, and they have to know how to launch lifeboats and how to retrieve lifeboats, and also how to launch life rafts, and they need to get into the water to try to upright the life raft. So these are the basics competency skills that we still imparting with them. So this is very important because one day they may help them when they are in a difficult situation. Okay, as you can see from the picture, we also have a yacht, SP Rover. It's a 42-inch yacht. So we also use this to also train our students, especially those seafarers. So to help them to improve their ship handling skills, and we also bring the boat to navigate in the ports. So you want to give them an authentic learning environment. At the same time, also they can also apply the collegiate regulations when they are handling the ships. And you see on the right hand at the bottom there, we also collaborating with our training partners at SMTC Global, not only to conduct training for those working on board the ships, but also those working in the offshore industry. So as you can see, there's a training there. So in this training time, you can actually simulate a helicopter cabin. And if you are actually working in the offshore industry, the seafarers actually are required to take a basic safety training, including a HUET, a helicopter underwater escape training. So they are using this simulator at Panellist to conduct this training. So as you can see, we also emphasize a lot on skill-based competency as part of our training. Okay, next, Captain Harry. Okay, the technology has actually come very quickly, and it's changed actually the way we train our students. That's why in 1999, SMA actually used simulators to conduct training for seafarers and navigators to improve their ship handling. Okay, in 2001, SMA actually have jointly worked with SMA to set up this integrated simulation center. As you can see, the building here, it costs about $12 million. And we conduct training regularly using simulators because there's a lot of advantage of using simulators. Okay, during this simulator training, we can actually build up the students' competency and soft skill. That means that they will actually improve the teamwork and leadership skills. And then during the exercise also, they also will build up their communication skills. And they also have the opportunity to demonstrate their critical thinking because we set up a scenario, a emergency scenario, and we see how they make decisions under this kind of situation. So these are some of the advantage of benefits actually simulators training can bring. And simulators also have used by many industries, even construction, aviation, aerospace, and even health industry. Okay? From what I know, the medical doctors, as part of their training to improve their surgery skills, they actually use a surgery simulator to do simulations. And the beauty of it is, if they make a mistake, nobody get injured or nobody die. So this is another advantage of using a simulator for training, because the students can handle the ships in any environment, in any types of ships, and any weather conditions. And if they make mistakes, nobody get injured. So they can do it in a safe environment. Okay. Okay. On top of that, they can do a lot of exercise in the simulator many times. So each time they make mistakes, so when the next time they do the exercise, they will avoid trying to make the same mistakes. So when they do more exercise in the simulator, when they come to dealing with the real thing, handling the real ships, so they were able to avoid making the same mistakes. So this is all added advantage of using a simulator for training. Okay? So currently at the Integrated Simulation Center, we have this full mission navigation simulator, 5 stations, with 3 stations, the instructor, and also we also have a dynamic position simulator for those people working in the industry who wants to have a DP certificate. So we are also conducting DP simulator training for them. And Nautical Institute actually, I believe, is the authority, the one issuing the certificate. Okay, besides this B simulator, we also have the A Navigation Center, where this center is equipped with the latest equipment. Okay? And in this center, we train our students to use ACDIS system and also to use radar and ARPA, as well to use the latest navigational equipment like echo sounder or radar. And also at this center, we also train them to operate communication systems, okay? GMDSS. Okay, on the left side also, we have simulator to actually prepare our students and train them on operating liquid cargo, okay? Especially those who are working on tankers, okay? Oil tankers or chemical tankers. Okay, next, Harry. Okay, I know our focus is more on navigation officers, but here also I just want to share with you some of the training facilities for engineering. We currently have an engine room simulator you see on the left side of the picture. And in this simulator, we are equipped with all equipment you can find in the real engine room. So actually, this simulator is mimicking a 2-stroke engine on a tanker ships. So you can find all other machinery and equipment inside the engine room, inside the simulator. For instance, a compressor, boiler, oily water separator. Okay, in 2 years ago, we actually has set up a new simulator called Advanced Engine Room Simulator. As you can see the picture on the right side. Okay, this simulator is using the latest technology, AR and VR. Okay, so it's by using this simulator, our engineering lecturer can actually simulate a different scenario. They can actually simulate a 2-stroke engine tanker or 4-stroke engine container ships, or even the azimuth transfer of cruise ships. Okay, and in this simulator also they can simulate different emergency scenario, like when the engine room is on fire or engine room is flooded. Okay? So this gives us actually a lot of flexibility to conduct our simulation exercise. Okay? And just to share with you, MPA also is making it mandatory for the students to actually see it for simulation assessment. Okay, so this is a mandatory requirement. Besides sitting for oral exam, they are also required to go for oral exam and also must pass the simulation assessment. Okay, so the MPA is a value of this type of training, and they also will be assessing students on the simulation also. Okay, next, Harry. Okay, I just want to share with you about 2 years ago, Singapore Polytechnic and SMI, Singapore Maritime Institute, has actually set up a Center of Maritime Center of Excellence in Maritime Safety (CMS) to embark in research work, applied research, to focus on maritime safety. Okay, so their focus mostly to improve navigational safety as well as the onboard ship operations. Okay? So quite a number of SMA faculties, about 6 of them, are actually working with the center to develop training package that use the latest technology. For instance, as you can see on the picture on the right side, we have actually developed a training package for the launching of the free fall lifeboat. Okay, because at our training facility at Polymena, we're not able to install an actual physical free fall library because of the constraint in the depth of water. So we are actually using an AR VR technology to develop a training package to launch the library. So we have also set up an AR VR lab in SP campus. So we are planning to use the lab to train our students to launch the free fall library using this technology. So as you can see, we not only have a simulators to teach our students to build up their competency, but we are also working with the center to develop a training package using the latest digital technology. And currently, the center is working with top marine technology companies like Kongsberg and Wärtsilä to develop more of such training package. Okay, next please, Captain. Okay, so it's important also for our members of faculty, the staff, to continuously be updated so that they will be able to teach our students more effectively. So we currently have a staff who have more than 20 or 30 years of industry experience, but we need to fill up the training gaps by sending them to attend latest course. So they will be equipped and ready to train our students using all the latest technology. So on top of this, as a policy, Singapore Polytechnic is making compulsory for all the staff to go for industrial engagement. So to get the latest and update information and be aware what is the latest practice of our ships. So for every 5 years, the staff are required to go attach with the company, not less than 4 weeks. So in this way, we have actually close engagement with industry to keep their knowledge and skills updated. Okay, before, let's go back and Captain Ari. Because you can see, because our contribution to the training, to the education for maritime, we have received quite a number of accolades and awards, as you can see from the left side. So it's in recognition of our contribution to the training. Okay, just now Captain Harry have mentioned a few questions which I have not addressed yet. Okay, for instance, do we actually discuss cases of recent accidents with our students? Yes, during our classes, during our lectures, and during our tutorials, we do discuss these cases with them. And then we also, this is what I call case study. So we try to get their input and they have to share their findings with us based on their knowledge. And then we finally discuss these cases together. Okay? But you know, the cases that we discuss with the students are those already been established by the authority. Okay? The cause already established by authority. So for recent most cases, normally we try not avoid to use the cases because we don't actually know what is the actual cause and we don't want to speculate. Okay. Okay, I hope I've addressed your question, Captain Harry. Okay, pass back to you.
Right. Thank you, Captain Chatur. And really amazed at the resources that are being provided for our new navigating officers. They've got a lot at their disposal. For us, when we were coming out to see actually a radar course itself, radar and ARPA course itself was state-of-art technology, something like Star Trek. Yourself and the team at Singapore Maritime Academy are doing a brilliant job in nurturing our younger generations of budding seafarers. And on behalf of the NI and the industry, please accept our heartfelt gratitude and please continue to keep up doing the good work. Moving on to our third and final panelist, Jillian. Request to come on screen. Jillian also needs no introduction, and she is extremely active as she is experienced in the maritime field. I think Eves has already told us all about Jillian. Her expertise is very vast as she has been a seafarer from the times, also from when the comforts and facilities of e-navigation systems were minimal or non-existent. Now she has embraced and is at the forefront of the e-navigation revolution. Jillian, if I may, a few questions before you get started. Based on the earlier presented views, what can be done to have machines and humans work together seamlessly? Humans design machines, yet humans are more prone to error. And so what would be the opportunities arising from these challenges towards coexistence? Is there any concentrated industry effort to standardize and simplify the user interface for E-Nav systems and make it more robust and fail-safe from an operator's perspective? Also, what are the new advancements to enhance the user experience in E-Nav systems? And last but not the least, is weather integration also something that is possible, as it seems that we tend to underestimate the forces of Mother Nature all the time? Over to you, Jillian.
Thank you. I could probably give you a week-long course on just all of those questions as they are. So thank you very much, and it really is an honor. And thank you to the other presentations, which really have set the scene from the point of view of looking at specific examples of e-navigation and the need for training. And wow, what some amazing facilities that are available for the training to happen. So I thought I'd come at this, and those questions, I hope I'm going to sort of meld them into my presentation a little bit to respond to them in that way, and looking at it from challenges and opportunities. Yes, so I live in Australia, I am Canadian, and you know, Deca Lorenzi, that was probably the coolest new technology we had coming. When I went to VTS, we had an old Sperry radar in the back room with a television camera putting onto a big old CRT screen. And now I have the honor to teach the up and coming VTS operators with all of the new digital, tools that they have for decision support. So we are definitely in a time of change, and there is this concept of humans and machines. And so that has actually spawned through history this link between humans and machines, this idea of human factors and ergonomics, and how does that work together. So the concept of human factors and ergonomics is really just describing the discipline and domain of practice concerned with understanding how we interact, how we relate to, and how we make use of machines, and optimizing human well-being and overall performance. So the machine is there to work. We're designing a machine to help us work better. We're not designing a machine to design us out. And I'm going to come back to that a few times. So you can't talk about e-navigation without talking about this aspect of machine and human factors and ergonomics. And linked into that, really related as well to some of the training discussions that have come up, is you have the need for the cognitive factors, so that the knowing, the learning aspects there, that is really concerned with perception, memory, reasoning, even your motor responses, your human-computer interaction. How are you going to use that piece of equipment to do a task? And of course, you have to know what that task is that you want that equipment to do. So you've got that communication, even human teamwork is in there. Then you've got within this Venn diagram idea, the physical factors. Now, we've heard about ergonomics, and we've probably all learned that we should have our computers at a certain height, and we have to think about how our human anatomy and physiology work together. But there's also this move into biomechanics and repetitive injuries that we're getting. And then we look at the organizational factors, and they address participation, cooperation with the environment, and how that socio-technical system, how it's all fitting together. So if you're thinking about that question about how we design a system to make a tool that we as human beings can use effectively, we have to look at us as humans interacting with the equipment, looking at the cognitive, the organizational, and the physical factors. So it really is this human factors and ergonomics looking to optimize human well-being and overall performance. And so that's what we're trying to do. Now, you did ask the question, is there any international concerted effort to address this? And my answer to you is, of course there is. We've been working very hard on that. And you'll see through the work of the IMO. At the IMO, and this actually came out in July 2015, it is the guideline on software quality assurance and human-centered design for e-navigation. So the goal is that within these guidelines, it talks about software design, but it's more than software design. It's looking at the human. So human-centered design. You go back to that idea of human factors and ergonomics, and now we're moving into human-centered design. So if you look into that guideline, you'll see that there are the aspects of how do you design, even based on an ISO standard. So the IMO document is there, based on the human-centered design HCD process, that's based on the ISO standard that is identified within the document. And then linked to that, we're getting into usability. So we start off with human factors and ergonomics. We move into thinking that we want to design a system that has the human at the center. So you're designing a system for the human. And, you know, I come back to that question that I had. Are we designing the system to include the human? Are we designing the human out of the system? And so what's an example of some equipment or some tool that you use every day that has been designed so that you feel comfortable using, so that you are almost to the point where you probably couldn't even think of being without? Well, mine is my phone. A few years ago, in fact, even when I went to Ayala, I didn't even own a mobile phone, and that would have been 2002. Now in 2020, I could not imagine being without it. It is useful, it is there. It serves a purpose on so many levels. I can play a game on it, I can contact, I can view my emails. And every now and then, yes, I do use it as a phone, but not just as a phone. I use it for video conferencing. I use it to Skype with my kids. I can WhatsApp. You've got so much capability in something that is so small. So that is the concept of quality, of designing a system where the human is making use of that system. So you've got that interaction. And there is actually a scale that's linked into this. And there's called the Quality in Use Scoring Scale. QUIS, I love that. If we think about human-centered design, we need to look at what we as humans, we know that we have those three areas. We've got that cognitive, we've got that physical, and we've got the organization. So we have to think about linking those together. How can we link those together effectively? And in e-navigation and all of the work that we're doing, we need to make sure, does it work? Is it going to meet our needs? And some of the key things we need to look at, is it effective? And our very first presentation about safety, is it safe? Is it efficient? And actually as humans, we want to know, is it satisfying? And there is a great scale, and it was put out by a gentleman by the name of Brian Sherwood Jones. And within this three areas, you can have a quantitative number next to a qualitative scale. So you can make use of this to actually quantify the effectiveness of designing and having a user satisfaction to ensure that you're having a user-centered design, not designing the human out of the tool, but designing the tool for the human to do something and do it better. So we're designing that human-centered design. Now, you did ask about the next step I'm going to move into now. Your other question about about weather. Weather has been a significant event, and e-navigation technologies. If I step back a little bit into some of my past work I've done, back in the early 1990s, when I was working in VTS, we could see radar targets, but we didn't know who they were. And at the time, I had a friend who was an air traffic controller, and he could ask his airplanes there to send what's called a squawk. They could squawk their ident. So I always say that in VTS, we had squawk envy. We wanted to be able to have positive identification of the targets that we saw on the ships. And we started working around, they called it transponders for ships that went in. There was a DSC, the new digital selective calling technology was seen to be the way that we could do this. Ultimately, we ended up with something called the Universal Automatic Identification System, which has now become AIS. Now, AIS is this automated way to send information. It's become pretty ubiquitous. We use AIS for so many things that it was not designed for. And if you see these articles about spoofing of AIS, it's interesting because we designed AIS to be open architecture. And I always tell people who say when they think they can spoof AIS, I said, what does open architecture mean to you? Because it was designed that it would be an open system, freely shared. But with that ability to share information, we built into it at that time. Some very smart minds got together and they built in something called the application-specific message, where you could automatically transfer data, including meteorological and hydrographic data. And you could have that information sent digitally to a ship that then could be ingested and displayed in some manner or provide information. So I tell you a little bit about the history of that, because when we get into weather, of course, one of the greatest tragedies that happened, and this report, this was from October 2015, was the El Faro, the sinking of the El Faro. And it's been identified as being the incident that never should have happened. It was based on a vessel going with incorrect weather information, without the latest weather information, putting themselves into an untenable situation. The report of that came out was asking, specifically with regards to AIS or an AIS-like system. So of course we're working, and I'm involved now in developing a system called the VHF Data Exchange System, which is it's like AIS, but more so. I used to say it's like AIS on steroids. They're trying to, we're working on getting more technology, more bandwidth available for the same digital transmissions. Following this El Faro, the incident report identified there could be an opportunity to investigate a proof of concept project or some sort of project where weather data could be exchanged automatically in order to provide and to address the fact that we are having some very significant weather events. And if you think of that, go back to your phone. If you go back to your phone and you think about going on Google and going for a drive somewhere, you can take a look at the road ahead, and if there is a slowdown, it will show up on your phone. You're going to get a bunch of red. Your traffic line will no longer be blue, it will go to red. And that's because it's gathering data automatically from all of the systems. So what if all of the ships could have their systems automatically use digitized data for wind and sea state, the clouds? You could have an optics that actually identifying clouds and have that transferred through automatically. So this was the report of the El Faro, and the recommendation was the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to develop this concept of a proof of concept. Now, we do know, of course, that weather is still a significant issue. And the Gulf Livestock One, the tragedy of the Gulf Livestock One, has a lot of, we don't have the reports of that yet, it's much too early. But there was significant severe weather, and we do have some AIS tracks of where the vessel's going. So if we are able to do one thing with digital data exchange to enhance and improve the safety of life at sea, then maybe this idea of transferring this data somehow automatically using our systems would be one. Now, I'm going to move on now, because it would be remiss of me not to talk about some of the specific work that the Nautical Institute has been doing over the years to support and to be involved in the development of e-navigation, keep that human at the center. The Nautical Institute, as Eve indicated, it is the organization for maritime professionals, afloat and ashore, and from cadets to master mariners, surveyors, VTS operators. With that in mind, we have a very broad base of expertise. And the Nautical Institute has been involved in e-navigation since the early days. David Petreco chaired a working group at the IALA on navigation in the early days, and I am honored myself now to chair 2 working groups within the IALA committees. Under the VTS committee, I chair the Personnel and Training Working Group, and under the e-navigation committee, I chair the working group dealing with emerging technologies. So S-Mode was one of the big areas that the Nautical Institute got working on. And this publication for S-Node, we started working on this idea of a user-led initiative so that we could have, especially within the ECDIS, the goal would be have one button, press it, and you get everything. That was in July of 2008. At the MSc 101 in June 2019, we did finally receive agreement on S-Mode. So when you're talking about developing technologies and e-navigation, things always, you want them to go faster, you're scared they're going to go too fast, but then you have to be there for the long run, and you have to have a vision of what it is that you want out of the tool. Technology is there to support us. We have to ensure that we are developing a human-centered design with human factors and ergonomic science behind us. Because as we all know, when technology is master, we reach disaster faster. So thank you very much for your patience.
All right, thanks, Jillian. And that was absolutely brilliant. In fact, a lot of concepts you have just enlightened us are eye-openers for most of us. And thank you for sharing this. These are exciting times I can see ahead. And we look forward to the positive effect it has on marine navigation. Ladies and gents, I must let you know that Jillian is making an enormous contribution towards making our industry a safer and better one. She is one person who rules the fact that the day has only 24 hours and there's so much to do. I follow her on LinkedIn, and I think I spend a lot of time just reading and I'm wondering what she has for breakfast. We will have that separate conversation, Jillian, because I think I need that energy. So, again, on behalf of the Marine fraternity, please accept our heartfelt gratitude and taking a page from our theme of the day, Onward and Upward. Right, so for the Q&A session, I would request our panelists to please come on screen. We've had a few questions which we have already answered. However, there is one that is outstanding, which I think particularly Captain Chatur and Jillian may be able to help on this. And this is with regard to training for crew members and shore staff, etc. in supplying countries, crew supplying countries, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Myanmar, since they're developing, and I believe there are lesser resources to implement these systems, save for the cost of training. How do you think that this could happen, to provide a cheap and efficient and convenient training for officers prior joining? Jillian, would you like to take this? Or
do you want me to take that one first?
Sure, yes, please, yes.
Okay. So from a training point of view, you mean prior to joining their vessels?
Yes, I think prior joining the vessels.
There are many opportunities for different types of training. We're having within the COVID environment right now, we're actually having to adapt and address and try and provide more effective training opportunities. I actually think it's going to be a very good opportunity for the seafarer. If you think of the seafarers working for months away on board, coming home and then having to go and do training to keep their tickets up, we have this opportunity now with more online learning capabilities and the link into the training institutes through a more virtual environment. I'm doing lots of online training myself, but from the seafarers, depending on what level they're at, you have to be careful to ensure that you give them the right tools for the jobs that they're going to be doing. With the technology changing, I'm sure many of us of a certain age will remember when ARPA came on board. My ship went alongside, the ARPA showed up, and they said, here's your ARPA, off you go. Here's your handbook, it says there, go have fun, go play, use it. There was no such thing as training for it, and we were hoping that when AIS came out, we'd have the same deal. But with the opportunity to use the tools more effectively, we do have an opportunity to address the training elements. And I think maybe I might have missed the key point of that question. I apologize if I did.
I think it's quite good what you said, Jillian. It made sense, perfect sense to me. Captain Chatur, I'm sure there is collaboration in this side of the world, which I think Singapore is also pioneering in many cases. Would you like to share that probably?
I think the question was addressing the problem that the developing countries are facing, which in terms of lack of resources. So in this case, I think IMO could play a bigger role to encourage the other IMO members to assist actually, how they can do it, to assist in funding, to assist in providing some training to improve of this country. The lack of resources, I think, maybe including lack of finance. So in this case, I think IMO can play a bigger role to encourage the other flag members to assist in this. Okay. For SMA, we are actually ready to help. They need to conduct training for these groups. We can even consider doing this online, using virtual platform like what we already did in this last few months. So if the need is rises and the request is made.
Thanks, Captain Chatur. I've got a question for Harry. Actually, Harry, I think one of the questions which would be burning on everybody's this thing, and still I've asked it earlier. But what do you think about people getting hands-on ship handling experience? I mean, in the investigations, we have noticed that a lot of youngsters are very, very savvy with the E-Nav and all the controls as such. Even my son can handle his phone better than me, and he rubs it in my face. But finally, if things fail, you got to go and get your hand on the wheel and kind of on the tiller and navigate the vessel. That seems to be lacking. That's the perception. Your thoughts on this?
Well, yes, I think that's right. As I said at the outset, it's knowing when you can rely entirely on E-Nav, where the modern tool has replaced the old traditional skills. Bearing in mind that the marine environment is a fairly harsh environment and things are prone to break down and go wrong. So I still think there's a lot to be said for teaching the traditional navigational skills as well as how to use the modern day equipment. Okay, we don't need to know perhaps today how to correct the magnetic compass, but we still need to know how to take a visual bearing, because it's quick, it's easy, and it tends to be accurate if we do it properly. So I think there's a lot to be said for still teaching some of the traditional skills, but as I say, I don't see the two as two separate systems. They're just two different types of tools that the mariner has in his toolbox, and he needs to use them all, apply them correctly, and know when to apply them and which ones to use. So yes, I don't think it's time to throw out all the old traditional skills. Far from it. But it is a fact we are moving towards a fully autonomous ship at some stage, which is designing the human out of the equation. I mean that's on the horizon, and it will come. Jillian, perhaps you might want to pick up on that.
Jillian, you're on mute. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I was trying to be very polite. Yeah, I have a couple of points on that. So the one about getting the hands-on experience, it'd be interesting actually. I have a question for panelists. The recent decision in the UK to put more emphasis on simulator training is one way, I guess, that they're trying to enable in a simulated environment to get more hands-on in a simulated environment. So one thing I'd like to ask a question, but before that, I want to address this idea of the autonomous ship designing the human out, because I think that's actually misunderstanding the work that's happening around this concept of maritime autonomous surface systems and ships, because it is all designed within a system. So you're not designing the human out, you're changing the role perhaps of what the human is going to be doing, but you're not designing the human out of that system. You're designing a system that is still meeting those safe and efficient and providing a goal there. The human role, the role of the human is changing. And I think we're seeing that through many, many industries, not just maritime. And the role of the human, has already changed, for example, in mining, where they have autonomous equipment that is doing mining, but there's still humans that are involved in the process. So I sort of don't think, I think what we have to be as careful as possible is to say that we're designing the human out of the system. We are redesigning the system to meet our needs. So we just have to make sure we've got a vision of what that need is going to be. And we don't let the technology drive where we're going. We actually take the reins and control that technology to meet our needs. But I do have that question about getting the hands-on experience and the move we heard a few months ago in the UK to bring in more simulation and to reduce sea time by having simulation.
Right. I think that addresses, because there was a lot of panic earlier when people started saying autonomous. Everyone thought like they're going to be loss of jobs, etc. And there was a lot of pandemonium. But then I think slowly it became clear like how the roles are going to be changed. My question also would be, yes, simulators are one solution. I recently attended a workshop where they gave me a VR set and they said, this room's on fire and you're going to actually make an enclosed space entry. It was very easy because there was no fire burning under my seat. I could not feel the heat. I was not choking on the smoke. I did not have that adrenaline rushing that somebody might die if I don't move quickly and this thing freeze. But whereas I could smell probably the room freshener and I could so it wasn't exactly the complete picture. It does give some perception and it helps with training skills. But simulator training as opposed to parallel sailing, mentoring in some ways, the traditional technique where we used to have that, there has to have this thing overlap of at least a week or a fortnight, and it was a very smooth process, although it does cost some companies money in ways of crew cost. But then again, training is always said to be an investment where if you think training is expensive, try having an accident, so that's way. So your thoughts on that? What would you all think on that with parallel sailing and mentoring at sea? Harry?
I think simulators are the way to go. I mean, we are following the airline industry. We're some years behind it. And you can do train people a lot faster and quicker in a simulator, I think, than in how to deal with difficult situations, because you don't always encounter a difficult situation at sea, or rarely, and then you're not going to be allowed to deal with it. You shouldn't be allowed to deal with it as a junior officer. It should be the master looking over your shoulder and perhaps in command at that stage. And so I think there's a lot to be said for simulator training. It is expensive, but I think it is the way to go. And I was interested in Captain Chatur's presentation. Clearly Singapore is ahead of the curve there with the facilities.
Right. Jillian, anything you would like to add on that?
I fully agree. I really support simulation training. I think it has to be effectively trained as well. And a little plug here for the Nautical Institute and the Nautical Institute publications. There is a handbook on the simulation to help the simulation instructors have that knowledge of how to actually adapt and train in the simulated environment. Simulation Instructors Handbook. And it's really great, not just because I wrote it, but it's one of our publications, and the NI does do a lot of work on that. I want to move into the concept of mentoring. I'm very, very keen on mentoring and what we can do to support the seafarers coming. I'm very concerned about who are going to be the maritime professionals in the future. We have so many issues around maritime, especially right now. But before then, it was linked to technology and all of the developments. But mentoring is a really key area. Within the Nautical Institute, we are developing already have the 10-minute mentor, Andre Le Goubin. His book is fantastic. He's got really practical ideas about how you can share your knowledge. And it is a skill set. It is something that you need to learn to do. And now the NI has embarked on a program to actually continue to support that and to bring mentoring. I think mentoring is one of the things that we can do to ensure the longevity of our organization and our profession as a whole.
Okay, I think
Just
yeah,
to
Captain
share
Chatur.
related,
Yes.
sorry. Okay, just to share with you related to mentoring. Currently, SMA, we do have this mentoring framework where a number of our staff are actually mentoring the students, especially those going to sea. We also have volunteers from MPA. Some of the staff from MPA also volunteer to do mentoring. Okay, currently we are doing this, especially for students who are fresh cadets who've never been at sea. So it's important for us to provide our guidance for them about their about your seaboard experience. Because along the way they may have problems, have issues on board the ships, so they need somebody to consult. So the mentor is the person actually they can look into. But besides mentors, SMA also we assign staff to come. So they are monitoring closely the students' progress on the ship. So the students are cadets are not alone on board the ship. So they have mentors, liaison officers to assist them doing it.
Right. Thanks, Captain Chatur. We are coming close to it. We've got 2 questions, but I think we have already answered this in part and parcel, actually, in different words. Whether it's the right time with technology on best to put reliance on self-propelled AI-mounted vessels that wouldn't be manned. I think Jillian and Harry have already debated on this. So this could be done with. There's one more that with the advancements of technology, threats of cyber attack, GPS signal jamming, should we be able to do away with traditional methods? I think we've already spoken about that. However, at the same time, I'm not going to give away our secret for our next webinar, our 3rd webinar on cyber security. And I would encourage you all to make sure you all stay tuned and come back to listen to this in greater detail. But bottom line is no, we will not be able to give up completely on older traditional methods. Like they said, it is just the change of role, a better decision support system from the E-Nav systems. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fantastic session. I would like to thank our panelists, Harry, Hirst, Jillian, Carson-Jackson, and Captain Chatur very much. I'd like to hand over to Yves for his final address and drawing it to a close before I do it on his behalf. Over to you, Yves.
Thanks, Harry. I have to say there was a really interesting discussion, really interesting presentations that were given by the 3 panelists, good questions that we received from the audience, and a good discussion we had on it. I just want to highlight something on the last part, because there was a comment from Captain Ashwin as well in the chat, echoing a bit what I wanted to say. I think, yes, I fully agree, simulators are really important and are a good way of training for things that you cannot experience at sea. I totally support the mentoring, which is really important, and I was mentored when I was growing up on board of ships, and that is really important to learn your way like that. I fully agree as well. I don't think that reducing sea time is the way forward. I know that that's what they are trying, but I think when from our club perspective, if you look at the claims that are happening, ever so often you can see that there is a not always sufficient experience. People might be competent, they might have the necessary STCW that they need for sailing, but they are not necessarily experienced enough to be able to deal with the position that they are holding on board of that particular ship. that was just something that I wanted to highlight. On my behalf as well, I very much would like to thank Jillian, Harry, and Chatur for your participation in this. I would like to thank Harry as well for moderating this session very expertly, as he always does. Thank you for letting me have the last word this time. I would want to invite everyone for our next webinar in a couple of weeks. I will send around invite, which will be on containers and tied in with that weather routing as well. I earlier posted a few links where you can find us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or you can just simply email us at our branch email. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for dialing in, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. See you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.